friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. Wow, what a weekend it's been. Now, after Vince McMahon has retired and we're still figuring out what exactly that meant, we've got this news that Triple H has now been named head of creative. The day is here, ladies and gentlemen. The day we never thought was actually going to come is finally here. Triple H is heading up creative. This is very exciting for a lot of people. A lot of people who were saw what he did while he was running NXT, the Black and Gold brand. So, what can we expect from this? What do we think is going to happen now that Triple H is headed creative? There's one small caveat to this as well. Although Vince remains a majority shareholder, for all those people I know like to put in the comments, Vince still owns the company, still the majority shareholder. He's basically going to be neutered at this point. I don't think he's going to be able to exercise much of any power. Given that this morning, also sort of in coordination with the Triple H announcement, it was also announced that WWE had made a filing with the SEC noting $14.6 million in unrecorded expenses paid out personally by Vince McMahon. As part of their investigation, they've uncovered at least $14.6 million. They will continue to investigate. So basically, that's the total amount that they found so far that Vince McMahon has paid out personally as this hush money for all these NDAs, all these relationships he's had with various employees and people over the years. That's how much so far has been discovered that he's paid out. This is bad news for Vince. Any idea that, he's still going to have power, he's still a majority. No, none of that matters. It's a publicly traded company. It'd be one thing if it was a private company. He can do what he wants. Once you become a publicly traded company, you have to sort of adhere to certain rules, or your power is going to be gone. On top of that, the stock price for WWE went up today by $5-6 or something like that. So yeah, for at least for the time being, for the foreseeable future, Vince is done. He's done. This is the Stephanie, Nick, and Paul show now. So let's get back to the creative aspect of things. What should we expect now that Triple H is in charge of creative? Number one, this seems kind of obvious, but Vince's yes men, the last two remaining guys who seem to be the most prominent yes men, Bruce Pritchard and Kevin Dunn, are probably going to be gone. There's been rumors dating back decades that Stephanie and Triple H are not fans of Kevin Dunn and vice versa. And Bruce Pritchard is very much sort of the guy who's there to translate what Vince likes in pro wrestling to the program. And yeah, it's already sort of with Triple H ascending, Bruce Pritchard's probably going to go down here. And it probably won't be too long before Bruce Pritchard is out completely, which is actually really good news for anybody like myself who's a big fan of his podcast, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, because ever since he's been back working with WWE and doing the podcast at the same time, number one, he's been a much bigger defender of WWE, seems less likely to open up fully with WWE. Now that all this is said and done, I feel like he's probably, once he's gone from WWE, he can probably, and granted it's from his perspective, but he'll probably open up a bit more on especially the last 5 years or so of WWE programming and what the mindset was, what went into the behind the scenes stuff for all that. Should be interesting to listen to his perspective on his podcast once he's gone, which you got to think is probably going to be the case. I mean, I don't know. It's Triple H's show, and Bruce was very much a Vince guy. So, yeah, probably Pritchard's going to be gone. Kevin Dunn's probably going to be gone, which means there could be some changes to the presentation. Now, I don't know. WWE's presentation is actually very slick. It's very polished. And for the most part, I actually kind of appreciate Kevin Dunn's TV direction. I know that's sort of sacrilege to say. I am not a fan of the smash cuts and the heavy zooms. But when you think about the direction for big moments and how AEW, on the other hand, sometimes fails to capture those big moments in a way that's dramatically compelling, Kevin Dunn's actually pretty good at that. He knows where the wrestlers are going to be and what beats to hit so that stories are told pretty well in terms of promos and stuff like that. And even some match finishes. It's just mid-match stuff when he has 5 cuts in the span of a second. That stuff needs to go. It's no good. I don't like it. Kevin Dunn's probably going to be gone as well. Let's move on. Triple H guys and gals, the wrestlers themselves, they're probably going to be elevated. We all know who Triple H's people are. It's all the original NXT people, kind of. Now, I don't expect this to happen sort of overnight. And in fact, either tomorrow or Wednesday, I'm going to drop a list looking at 10 wrestlers who should be elevated fairly quickly, or at least 10 wrestlers who should benefit now from Triple H being head of creative and Vince having retired. So we're going to take a look at that. But names like, for example, Tommaso Ciampa, probably the most obvious one. Kevin Owens also, who sort of hasn't really, even with all he's done, fulfilled his absolute potential in WWE. I still feel like he might have a second big run in him in terms of being a main eventer. I'd like to see Kevin Owens fulfill his potential there on main roster. I feel like Triple H, the guy who literally handed him the Universal title, is probably the guy to do it. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I fully expect everybody who we know of as Triple H wrestlers, Triple H guys, so to speak, Finn Balor, Asuka, like I said, Ciampa. Maybe this might lead to Gargano coming back into WWE now that Triple H is there. There's also been some reports that backstage at AEW, some AEW wrestlers are happy about this because now they see WWE as possibly an option. Could we see FTR return to WWE now with Triple H there in charge? I think that's a distinct possibility. They still have like a year left on their contracts. And besides a run in New Japan, they've done everything they could possibly do outside of WWE. So maybe next up is a serious run in WWE without all the clown costumes and stuff. Next up, what else could change? How about NXT? If Pritchard is going to be gone, does that leave the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels as the lone major creative voice in NXT, his close working relationship with Triple H, them running all of creative together? DX is going to be running all of developmental and creative in WWE. That actually sounds kind of amazing. I'll be honest, that sounds like it could be pretty great. Are we going to see a return to the pre-AEW days where they're going to try to sign up names that are being made outside of WWE and AEW, the independent names? Is there going to be more of a battle between those names or between AEW and WWE for certain names that are outside of the independent circuit coming up in all sorts of different wrestling promotions? GCW, Prestige Wrestling, Black Label Pro. I don't know. I'm just sort of naming off other independent names off the top of my head. Action Coast Wrestling, for God's sakes. So are we going to see a return to that? One thing I don't expect is for WWE to go back to the days when they would have wrestlers keep their names coming in. I think for certain people, like for a certain level of wrestler, they'll probably end up keeping their name. Like if MJF ended up coming to WWE under Triple H, I'm sure MJF will probably keep his name. But other wrestlers will probably end up having to change their names just because I think it's probably still be considered bad business for WWE to spend money and resources on wrestlers to build their brand only to be able to use that same name over there in AEW. AEW changed a lot of things, and I think that's one of them. I wouldn't blame WWE for sticking to that policy of name changes, but maybe now the name changes will be a bit more like when Triple H was heading up NXT, and that was still the philosophy there. Prince Devitt went to Finn Balor, and he lets them choose the names, and it's not going to be silly shit like Butch or Doudrop or Gunther. It's going to be names like Hideo Itami, who used to be Kenta, and now he's Kenta again, but names that are more well thought out. Hell, even Doudrop, before she was Doudrop, she was Piper Niven. That was a name that she used only in WWE. Then she shows up and Vince is like, you're Doudrop. I kind of feel like those days are probably over. Another thing about NXT, are we going to see names that are obviously more like Shawn Michaels type guys, like Carmelo Hayes? Are we going to see him be pushed up to that main event scene instead of Braun Breaker? Are they going to do something a bit more interesting with Braun Breaker instead of just make him good guy Steiner? I don't know, but you might see a philosophy change also in NXT, bringing people up there. Are we going to return to the metal era of NXT? Are they going to swap out the Raw theme song for a metal theme song? Maybe some Motorhead. That would kind of be awesome. I'm not going to lie. Let's talk about this really quick. Something else we can expect. We already saw it on SmackDown, I feel. Sort of a looser television production. One thing that stood out, and I don't even know why, but it stood out to me, was during the Viking Raiders New Day segment with whoever the Viking Raiders fought. I forgot who it was. The New Day, Kofi and Xavier Woods, they're wearing street clothes as opposed to their wrestling gear. And that's something you don't see very often on main roster product. Usually when people come out, unless it's specifically for something that's definitely not wrestling related, they're wearing like their wrestling gear. The New Day were wearing street clothes. There's some rumors backstage from Fightful Select that everybody thought that it was a bit of a looser deal. Less recaps, maybe. Less rematches, maybe. A smaller emphasis on silly things like calling it a title and not a belt. Are we going to go back to like a non-Velcro strip championship title? Can we bring the buttons back? My God, there's a lot that could change, actually. So, yeah, I don't know. That's sort of all I have right now. I want to hear what you guys have to say, though. What changes do you think are going to be possible under Triple H? Now, I don't think there's going to be wholesale changes across the board where, like, you know, all of a sudden Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns are going to be pulled from the main event of SummerSlam and they're going to put Finn Balor and Kevin Owens. I don't think that stuff's going to happen. I don't think it needs to happen. I think that WWE, by and large, is going to look and feel the same as it has. But it's the small changes that I think are going to make the difference. Instead of endless recaps, we'll have more matches. Instead of silly things, we'll have not silly things. I think those small changes will go a long way. Maybe we'll get more of a sense of urgency. I got that also from that episode of SmackDown on Friday night. There seemed to be a little bit more of a sense of urgency. Stephanie comes out without any recaps. Street Profits immediately come down from the crowd, which, by the way, they used to do in NXT. And we're off to the races. It was like, I don't know, 41 minutes before we got a first recap on SmackDown on Friday night. It's those kinds of changes that'll make the difference, not the big, giant, big picture ones, but those small differences that will make the difference, that will bring people back and keep them there if you always keep them engaged. Are we going to see an end of comedy stuff like the Maximum Male Models, which I'll be honest, I kind of like Maximum Male Models, I'll be honest with you. I hope they stick around. Well, now that Max Dupree's not going to be a thing, maybe not. Anyways, let me know what changes you think are possible in the comments below. Check out this video over here. Hit that subscribe button, notify bell, and the like button. We'll see you over at that video.